The morning sky over New York burned red as alien ships descended through the clouds. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the orbital defense station, watching the impossible sight unfold on her screens. 12 massive vessels, each the size of a city block, moved with deadly purpose toward Earth's surface. "Admiral, we're receiving no response to our communication attempts," Lieutenant Torres reported, his voice tight with fear. "They're not even acknowledging our existence." Sarah's jaw clenched as she watched the first energy beams lance down from the alien fleet. The Statue of Liberty vanished in a flash of superheated plasma. Manhattan's skyline began to crumble as more beams swept across the city like a giant's paintbrush, leaving only ash and molten metal. Across the planet, the same scene played out in Tokyo, London, and Sao Paulo. The aliens struck without warning, without negotiation, without mercy. Their weapons turned humanity's greatest cities into funeral pyres in minutes. "Status report from all colonies," Sarah ordered, forcing her voice to remain steady, even as she watched millions die below. "Luna Base is mobilizing all defensive forces," came the reply. "Mars Colony is bringing their fleet online. The asteroid mining stations are arming their ships. Admiral, everyone's asking for orders." Sarah looked at the tactical display, showing Earth's scattered forces. To any outside observer, humanity looked weak. They had been in space for less than 200 years. Their technology seemed primitive compared to these aliens, who moved through space like they owned it. But the aliens had made one critical mistake. They had killed human civilians first, and asked questions later. "Open a channel to all frequencies," Sarah commanded. "Full galactic broadcast." "You're live to the entire galaxy, Admiral." Sarah stared into the camera, her gray eyes hard as steel. Behind her, Earth continued to burn. "To the forces that have attacked humanity without provocation, I am Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth Defense Command. You struck first. You killed our civilians. You came to our home and murdered our children, our families, our friends." She paused, watching another beam of energy turn a hospital in Berlin into rubble. "This is your only warning. Strike again, and we will show you why Earth's children learn to make war before they learn to make peace." The alien commander aboard the lead ship, Warlord Fek of the Zilani hegemony, laughed when he heard the translation. His species had conquered 47 worlds. His allies controlled 12 different star systems. These humans had barely colonized their own solar system. "The prey threatens the hunter," Fek said to his bridge crew, his forearms gesturing dismissively. "How amusing. Continue the bombardment." But something strange began happening across human space. The mining ships in the asteroid belt suddenly changed course, heading toward the inner system. The cargo vessels, traveling between colonies, started broadcasting military identification codes. Research stations on distant moons began powering up weapon systems that weren't supposed to exist. On Luna, Commander Maria Santos received the Admiral's broadcast in her underground command center. Around her, technicians worked frantically at consoles that looked like they belonged in a mining facility, but appearances could be deceiving. "Activate all hidden assets," Santos ordered. Authorization code Alpha 77. Across the moon's surface, what looked like mining equipment began to transform. Drilling platforms rotated to reveal missile batteries. Transport trucks shed their civilian disguises to become mobile weapons platforms. The lunar colonies had been preparing for this day since the first humans set foot on another world. The same transformation occurred on Mars. The agricultural domes opened to reveal fighter squadrons. The water processing plants were actually weapons factories that had been operating in secret for decades. Even the asteroid miners were revealing their true purpose as humanity's early warning system. Dr. James Park sat in his laboratory on Europa, watching the feeds from Earth with tears in his eyes. He had family and soul. Had family. The city was gone now, reduced to a crater of glass and ash. "Sir," his assistant said quietly, "the packages are ready for deployment." James nodded and entered his authorization code. Across Jupiter's moons, research facilities that the galaxy believed were studying ice and radiation began launching small probes toward the gas giant's radiation belt. Each probe carried something that would make the aliens regret their surprise attack. Back on Earth, the alien bombardment continued for 6 hours. When it finally stopped, a quarter of humanity's major cities lay in ruins. 50 million people were dead. The aliens' ships hung in orbit like vultures, waiting for humanity's surrender. Instead, they received a message that made Warlord Thek's confidence begin to crack. "This is General Rodriguez, commanding officer of the North American Defense Grid. All civilian survivors have been evacuated to underground facilities. All military assets are now active and ready for engagement. We repeat our Admiral's message: strike again and be destroyed." Thek looked at his intelligence officer. "How many military vessels do the humans possess?" The officer consulted his display nervously. "Our initial scans showed approximately 3,000 ships across their entire solar system, Warlord. But we're now detecting more." "How many more?" "The number keeps growing, sir. Our sensors are finding ships hiding in asteroid fields, in the radiation shadows of gas giants, even in the debris of their own destroyed cities. Current count is approaching 10,000 vessels." Thek's 4 eyes widened. "That's impossible. Our intelligence reports showed they barely had a space navy." "It appears," the intelligence officer said quietly, "that their intelligence was better than ours." Admiral Chen stood in her command center, watching the alien ships hover above her burning world. Every instinct screamed at her to attack immediately, to make them pay for what they had done. But rage without strategy was suicide. Humanity had learned patience along with warfare. "All fleets report ready status," her communications officer announced. "Operation Sleeping Giant is fully active." Sarah nodded. The aliens thought they were dealing with a young species that barely understood space travel. They would learn otherwise. Humanity had spent 2 centuries preparing for this exact moment, spreading through space not just to explore and colonize, but to ensure their survival against any threat. The galaxy was about to discover what humans meant when they promised destruction. "Signal all commands," Sarah said. "Hold position and wait for their next move. When they attack again, we show them our teeth." The Zalani hegemony had fired the first shot. They would not fire the last. 3 days after the bombardment of Earth, Warlord Thek stood before the High Council of the Zalani hegemony. The chamber was filled with representatives of 12 different alien species, all united under hegemony rule. Their combined fleets had conquered this entire sector of the galaxy over the course of 3,000 years. "The humans refused to surrender," Thek reported, his voice showing no concern. "They have made threats, but their actions show only defensive postures. Their remaining cities have gone underground like frightened animals." Counselor Vex, a tall insectoid being with razor-sharp claws, clicked disapprovingly. "You allowed them time to organize. This was a mistake." "A minor delay," Thek replied. "Their fleet strength is greater than expected, but still negligible compared to our forces. I request permission to deploy the Grand Fleet to finish this conquest." Grand Admiral Korath, Supreme Commander of all hegemony forces, activated the tactical display. It showed the human solar system surrounded by red markers indicating hegemony fleet positions. "Deploy 4 battle groups," Korath decided. 1,200 ships total. That should be more than sufficient to crush any resistance these primitives can offer. What the Hegemony Council didn't know was that their secure communications had been intercepted for the past 18 months. In a hidden facility buried deep beneath the lunar surface, Captain Elena Vasquez watched their entire war planning session in real time. "They're sending everything," she reported to Admiral Chen through an encrypted channel. 1,200 ships, arriving in 5 days. Good, Sarah replied from her command bunker on Earth. Operation Trojan Horse is a go. Signal all sleeper assets. Across hegemony space, ships that had been operating as human merchants, researchers, and diplomats for years began receiving coded messages. The crew of the cargo vessel Free Trader, docked at Hegemony Station Zeta-7, suddenly became very busy in their hold. What looked like shipping containers began unfolding into weapons platforms. Captain Marcus Webb had been playing the role of a simple trader for 3 years. His ship regularly delivered luxury goods from Earth to various hegemony worlds. The aliens enjoyed human music, human art, and human alcohol. They never bothered to scan his cargo too carefully. Time to stop pretending, Marcus told his crew. Activate the real cargo. The luxury goods were actually military equipment that had been smuggled piece by piece into hegemony territory. Marcus's ship wasn't a merchant vessel. It was a deep strike platform that had been waiting for this exact moment. Similar scenes played out on 43 other civilian human vessels scattered throughout hegemony space. The galaxy's intelligence services had completely failed to recognize humanity's true nature. Dr. Lisa Wong worked at a xenobiology research station on the hegemony world of Kepler Prime. For 2 years, she had been studying alien bacteria and sending her findings back to Earth. Her colleagues thought she was a harmless scientist interested in microbiology. They were wrong on every count. Research phase is complete, Lisa transmitted using a quantum communicator hidden in her equipment. All biological warfare countermeasures are in place. Target species' genetic weaknesses have been identified and catalogued. The truth was that humanity had been preparing for galactic war since their first contact with alien civilizations 50 years earlier. They had learned early that the galaxy was not a peaceful place. Every human scientist, trader, and diplomat had a secondary mission: gather intelligence and prepare for the day when humanity would need to fight for survival. That day had arrived. Back in the Sol system, the real scope of humanity's preparation began to reveal itself. The asteroid belt, which other species saw as a source of raw materials, had been turned into the largest fortress complex in known space. Commander Zhang piloted his fighter through the Ceres facility, watching thousands of other ships preparing for launch. The mining station was actually a military shipyard that had been operating in secret for decades. All squadrons report ready, he transmitted to Fleet Command. Stealth fighters are armed and prepared for deep strike operations. The fighters looked nothing like the bulky human ships the galaxy was familiar with. These were sleek, angular vessels designed for one purpose: to get close to enemy targets without being detected and deliver overwhelming firepower. On Mars, General Patricia Hayes walked through underground factories that stretched for hundreds of kilometers beneath the planet's surface. Assembly lines that supposedly produced farming equipment were actually manufacturing weapons that had never been seen in galactic warfare. Production targets exceeded by 30%, her aide reported. We have enough firepower to arm every human settlement in known space. And the special projects? Complete. The antimatter charges are ready for deployment, and the nanite swarms are standing by. Patricia nodded grimly. Humanity had developed weapons that violated several galactic warfare conventions. But the aliens had broken the most important rule of all. They had attacked civilians without provocation. The hegemony's Grand Fleet assembled at the edge of human space, a massive armada that had never known defeat. Warlord Thek commanded from his flagship, a vessel the size of a small moon. Around him, 1,200 ships prepared to finish what they had started. Intelligence reports minimal human fleet movements, his tactical officer reported. Most of their ships remain in defensive positions, around their major colonies. "Excellent," Feck said. "They know they cannot win, so they huddle around their homes, like children hiding from thunder. Begin the attack." The Grand Fleet moved toward Earth, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had no idea that their every move was being tracked by sensors humanity had been placing throughout space for decades. Admiral Chen watched the enemy fleet approach on her tactical display. Around her, the hidden command center buzzed with activity as hundreds of officers coordinated humanity's response. "All assets in position?" she asked. "Confirmed. Operation Sleeping Giant is fully deployed. The sleeper ships report ready. The asteroid defense grid is online. The special weapons are armed." Sarah looked at the display showing Earth, still scarred from the alien attack. The ruins of great cities reminded her why they were about to do the unthinkable. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "When they enter the inner system, we show them what humans do to those who murder our families." In deep space, the human vessel Distant Star drifted silently in the shadow of a dead comet. To any scanner, it looked like a derelict ship that had been abandoned years ago. Captain Johnson and his crew had been waiting in this position for 8 months. "Enemy fleet approaching our position," his sensors officer whispered. "They're not scanning us." "Good," Johnson replied. "Maintain silent running until they pass. Then we follow them home." The Hegemony fleet had no idea that dozens of human ships were already behind their lines, waiting to strike at their supply bases and shipyards. They also didn't know that every major Hegemony facility now had human researchers and diplomats inside, ready to disable their defenses from within. As the alien armada approached Earth for what they believed would be the final battle, humanity prepared to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. The species that had learned to wage war before they learned to make peace was about to show why they had spread so carefully through space. The Hegemony had ignored Earth's warning. They would not ignore what came next. The Hegemony Grand Fleet entered the Sol system with the confidence of predators approaching wounded prey. 1,200 warships moved in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready to deliver humanity's death blow. Warlord Feck stood on his command bridge, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. The planets still showed the scars of their first attack. Entire continents were dark, where cities once blazed with light. "Human fleet positions?" he asked his tactical officer. "Scattered defensive formations around their major colonies, sir. They're not even trying to intercept us. Total enemy strength appears to be approximately 8,000 vessels." Feck smiled with satisfaction. 8,000 ships against 1,200 might seem like poor odds, but his fleet represented the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. Each of his vessels could destroy 10 human ships without breaking formation. "Prepare for final bombardment. This time we finish what we started." But as his fleet crossed the orbit of Neptune, something impossible happened. Every single communication relay in Hegemony space went silent simultaneously. "Sir," his communications officer called out in alarm, "we've lost contact with command. All our deep space relays are offline." "Technical malfunction," Tech dismissed. "Continue the attack." He had no way of knowing that at that exact moment, 47 Hegemony military installations across 12 star systems were under simultaneous assault by forces that seemed to materialize from nothing. Captain Marcus Webb watched Hegemony Station Zeta 7 through his ship's targeting sensors. For 3 years, he had docked at this station as a simple trader. Now he was about to show them what his cargo really contained. "All systems green," his weapons officer reported. "Antimatter charges are armed and ready." "Fire when ready," Marcus ordered. The free trader launched 12 missiles that had been disguised as shipping containers for months. They struck the station's main reactor before the alien defenders even knew they were under attack. The explosion could be seen from 3 light-years away. Similar strikes erupted across Hegemony territory. The research vessel studying nebula formations revealed itself to be a stealth carrier, launching 50 fighter craft against a fleet depot. The diplomatic ship visiting Hegemony Prime suddenly turned its communication array into a weapon that fried every satellite in orbit. On Kepler Prime, Dr. Lisa Wong calmly walked to her laboratory's emergency broadcast system. As alarms began wailing across the planet, she transmitted a single code phrase to every human asset in the system. "The sleeper has awakened," she said. Within minutes, the planet's defense grid began targeting its own installations. Human scientists and students who had been placed throughout hegemony space for years revealed their true identities. They had been mapping every weakness, cataloging every defensive system, and preparing for this exact moment. The hegemony's greatest shipyard at Rigel Station came under attack from forces they couldn't understand. Ships seemed to emerge from the station's own asteroid field, firing weapons that shouldn't exist. The facility's commander frantically tried to activate their defenses, only to discover that their targeting computers had been compromised months earlier. Admiral Chen watched the tactical display from her command bunker as reports flooded in from across hegemony space. Every red dot, representing an enemy facility, was winking out one by one. "Status report," she ordered. "Zeta 7 is destroyed. Rigel shipyard is crippled. The Kepler Prime defense grid is offline. All primary communication relays are down. Sir, it's working exactly as planned." Sarah nodded grimly. Humanity had spent 50 years preparing for this day, placing assets throughout known space, while pretending to be a peaceful species, interested only in trade and research. The aliens had welcomed them, never suspecting that every human who entered their territory was gathering intelligence and preparing sabotage operations. Back in the Sol system, Warlord Thek was beginning to understand that something had gone very wrong. His fleet was less than 6 hours from Earth, but he had received no communications from his home territory for 2 hours. "Send a reconnaissance probe back to our nearest base," he ordered. "I want to know why communications are down." "Sir," his sensor officer called out urgently, "we're detecting movement in the asteroid belt. Multiple contacts, moving at high speed toward our position." Thek looked at the tactical display and felt his first moment of real concern. The human ships weren't running away. They were attacking. But these weren't the bulky, slow vessels his intelligence reports had described. The ships emerging from the asteroid field were sleek and fast, moving with an agility that seemed impossible for their size. "Enemy vessels are using advanced stealth technology," his tactical officer reported with growing alarm. "They were hiding right under our sensors." Commander Zhang led the first wave of human fighters as they broke cover from the asteroid belt. His squadron had been hiding in the shadow of Ceres for 6 days, waiting for this moment. "All fighters, this is Alpha Leader. Remember what they did to our cities. Remember our families. Show them no mercy." The human fighters moved like deadly dancers through space, their advanced engines allowing them to change direction in ways that violated everything the hegemony knew about space combat. They struck the outer ships of the Grand Fleet with weapons that cut through alien armor like it was paper. "What are those weapons?" Thek demanded as he watched his ships explode one by one. "Unknown technology, sir. They appear to be using focused antimatter beams combined with nanite warheads." The truth was that humanity had been developing weapons specifically designed to counter hegemony technology. Every diplomatic mission and trade negotiation had been an intelligence-gathering operation. The humans knew exactly how to kill each species in the hegemony alliance. As the first wave of human fighters tore through his outer formation, Thek received another shock. His reconnaissance probe had reached the edge of the system and transmitted its findings back to the fleet. "Sir, the probe reports multiple human vessels following our fleet's path. They've been tracking us since we left hegemony space." Thek realized with growing horror that his fleet was surrounded. The humans hadn't been cowering in their solar system. They had been preparing a trap. Captain Johnson smiled grimly as his ship, the Distant Star, revealed its true nature. What had appeared to be a derelict vessel was actually a mobile weapons platform carrying enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. "Signal the other ghost ships," he ordered. "Time to show these aliens what happens when you attack humanity." 27 ships that had been following the hegemony fleet in perfect stealth suddenly dropped their disguises and began firing. The Grand Fleet found itself caught between the hammer of human fighters striking from the asteroid belt and the anvil of human warships attacking from behind. But the worst was yet to come. As Thek's fleet tried to respond to the coordinated assault, new contacts appeared on their sensors. Ships were emerging from Jupiter's radiation shadow, from the ice rings of Saturn, from the dark space beyond Pluto. Humanity had turned their entire solar system into a weapons platform. General Hayes launched her special weapons from Mars as the battle reached its peak. Missiles that looked like simple probes dispersed clouds of nanites programmed to consume specific alloys used in hegemony ship construction. Within minutes, alien vessels began falling apart as their hulls were eaten from the inside out. "Sir," Thek's tactical officer screamed over the chaos of battle, "we're detecting massive energy signatures from the human homeworld. They're powering up planetary defense systems." Earth itself began to reveal weapons that shouldn't exist. Massive railguns emerged from mountain ranges. Orbital platforms that had been disguised as communication satellites suddenly began firing coherent energy beams that could punch through a battleship's armor. The planet the hegemony thought they had crippled was actually the most heavily defended world in known space. As his grand fleet died around him, Warlord Thek finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. The humans hadn't just been preparing for war. They had been preparing for this specific war, against these specific enemies, using intelligence they had gathered over decades of pretending to be harmless. "All ships, retreat," he ordered desperately. "Full withdrawal to hegemony space." But there was no hegemony space to retreat to. The reports flooding in from across their territory told the same story. Every major military installation was destroyed or captured. Their fleets were scattered. Their supply lines were cut. In 6 hours, humanity had effectively destroyed a galactic empire that had taken 3,000 years to build. Admiral Chen watched the tactical display as the surviving hegemony ships fled in disorder. Less than 200 vessels remained from their grand fleet of 1,200. "Pursuit orders, Admiral?" her tactical officer asked. "No," Sarah replied quietly. "Let them run. Let them tell the galaxy what happens when someone attacks humanity's families." The first phase of humanity's response was complete. Now the galaxy would learn why Earth's warning should never have been ignored. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. Representatives from 43 different species gathered in the Great Chamber on Nexus Prime, their voices rising in panic and confusion as reports flooded in from across known space. "The entire Zilani hegemony fleet has been destroyed," announced Counselor Prime Vorth, his tentacles trembling with fear. 1,200 ships, gone in less than 6 hours. "That's impossible," protested Ambassador Krill of the Thorian Empire. "The humans are barely spacefaring. Our intelligence shows they have primitive technology at best." "Your intelligence was wrong," came a new voice from the chamber's entrance. Everyone turned to see Warlord Thek, his once proud uniform torn and burned, supported by 2 medical attendants. Of the 12 members of the Hegemony High Command, he was the only survivor. "Tell us what happened," Counselor Vorth demanded. Thek's 4 eyes were wide with trauma as he spoke. "They were ready for us. Not just ready. They were waiting. Every human we thought was a peaceful trader or scientist was actually a warrior in disguise. They had been studying us, learning our weaknesses, preparing to destroy us. He activated a holographic display showing the remains of the Grand Fleet. Look at these recordings. Watch how they fight. They don't just want to win battles, they want to erase everything that threatens them. The assembled diplomats watched in horrified silence as human ships performed impossible maneuvers, their pilots pulling forces that should have killed them. But the most terrifying part was the human voices on the communication channels, calm and professional even as they delivered death. Destroyer 77, ramming speed on the battleship, for Earth and her children. Copy that, 77. See you on the other side. All ships, 77 is making her final run. The recording showed a human ship, its hull breached and life support failing, accelerating directly toward a hegemony battleship 10 times its size. As the two vessels collided in a ball of nuclear fire, the human crew was broadcasting music across all frequencies. "What kind of species fights like this?" whispered Ambassador Krill. Feck's voice was hollow. "The kind that sees death in battle as acceptable if it protects their families. They fight like they're already dead. How do you defeat an enemy that doesn't fear death?" As the council debated, the war was already spreading across the galaxy. The Thorian Empire, ancient allies of the Zolani hegemony, mobilized their fleets to restore order. The Crystalline Collective, fearing that human expansion would threaten their territory, began preparing for conflict. But they had learned nothing from the hegemony's defeat. Captain Elena Rodriguez piloted her stealth ship through the Thorian home system, watching their fleet formations with professional interest. Her mission was simple: gather intelligence on Thorian battle tactics and weapon capabilities. What she found exceeded her worst fears. "Command, this is Ghost Rider," she transmitted through quantum communicators that couldn't be intercepted. "Thorian fleet strength is massive. 3,000 ships in the primary battle group alone. They're also using civilian populations as shields around their military stations." Admiral Chen's response was immediate. "Confirmed, Ghost Rider. New rules of engagement are in effect. Any species that uses civilians as shields forfeits the right to protection for their own civilians." Elena felt a chill at those words. Humanity was about to cross a line that would horrify the galaxy, but the aliens had crossed it first. "Understood, Command. Beginning deep strike preparations." Across the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place, as human intelligence officers reported on the various species joining the war against Earth. Each report revealed the same pattern. The aliens believed they could use human morality against them. They were wrong. Dr. Sarah Kim worked in her laboratory aboard the research vessel Deep Thought, preparing weapons that violated every galactic warfare convention. The nanite swarms she had developed could consume entire cities, leaving only dust behind. "Are you sure about this?" asked her assistant, staring at the containers that held billions of microscopic killers. "They bombed our cities first," Sarah replied coldly. "They killed 50 million civilians without warning. If they want total war, we'll give them total war." The first sign that this conflict would be different from anything the galaxy had seen came when the Thorian fleet attacked the human colony on Kepler 438b. The colonists evacuated to underground shelters, while orbital defenses held the aliens off for 6 hours. When relief finally arrived, it wasn't in the form of a rescue fleet. It was a single human ship that emerged from hyperspace like an angel of death. Captain James Park commanded the destroyer Vengeance, one of humanity's newest vessels. His ship was small compared to the Thorian battleships surrounding the colony, but it carried something that would change the nature of warfare forever. "This is Captain Park to Thorian Fleet Command," he broadcast on all frequencies. "You have attacked a civilian colony. You have 30 seconds to withdraw or face the consequences." The Thorian commander laughed at the ultimatum. "One small ship against our entire fleet? Human, your bravery is admirable, but foolish." 20 seconds, Park replied calmly. The Thorians opened fire, their massive weapons turning space around the Vengeance into a storm of energy and metal. But the human ship didn't try to dodge or return fire. Instead, it accelerated directly toward the largest Thorian battleship. 10 seconds. For my daughter who died on Earth, for all the children they murdered. As the two ships collided, the Vengeance detonated its experimental antimatter core in a controlled explosion. The blast vaporized not just the Thorian flagship, but created a chain reaction that destroyed 8 other vessels. The shockwave shattered the windows on the colony below. But Captain Park's sacrifice did more than destroy enemy ships. It sent a message to the galaxy. Humans would pay any price to protect their people. The war escalated rapidly after that. The Crystalline Collective attacked human mining operations in the Vega system. In response, human ships appeared in crystalline space and began systematically destroying every military installation they could find. The aliens learned that human tactics were unlike anything they had encountered. Human ships would sacrifice themselves to destroy larger enemy vessels. Human soldiers would fight to the death rather than surrender. Human colonies would detonate themselves rather than be captured. On the Thorian world of Beta Centauri, General Patricia Hayes watched through orbital cameras as her nanite swarms consumed the planet's primary military base. The microscopic machines ate through metal and concrete like acid, leaving behind only empty space where a fortress had stood an hour before. Thorian Command is requesting negotiation, her communications officer reported. Too late for that, Patricia replied. They had their chance to withdraw when Captain Park gave them warning. The galaxy watched in horror as human forces demonstrated weapons and tactics that violated every rule of civilized warfare. But every atrocity was preceded by evidence of alien attacks on human civilians. The turning point came when the Vegan Republic attempted to use biological weapons against the human colony on Wolf 359. The attack killed 30,000 colonists, including women and children. Humanity's response was swift and absolute. Dr. Lisa Wong, now revealed as a biological warfare specialist, released her own engineered viruses into vegan space. But unlike the aliens' indiscriminate weapons, her creations were precisely targeted. They affected only vegan military personnel, leaving civilians untouched, but eliminating every soldier, pilot, and officer in their armed forces. Within a week, the entire vegan military ceased to exist. "This is Admiral Chen to all hostile forces," came the broadcast that would be remembered throughout galactic history. "You started this war by attacking our civilians. You have escalated it by using biological weapons against our children. We are prepared to eliminate every military force that threatens humanity, regardless of cost." The recording showed Earth in the background, still scarred from the original hegemony attack. But the planet was no longer defenseless. Massive weapons platforms orbited every major population center. The asteroid belt had become a fortress that bristled with guns. "You wanted to see what humans do when threatened?" Admiral Chen continued. "Look around you. Look at your burning fleets and empty military bases. We told you once, strike again and be destroyed. You didn't listen." As reports of human victories flooded in from across the galaxy, species that had initially supported the war against Earth began reconsidering their position. The humans didn't just defeat their enemies, they erased them so completely that rebuilding would take centuries. But the most terrifying thing wasn't humanity's weapons or tactics. It was their absolute dedication to victory. Every human fought as if the survival of their entire species depended on their individual actions, because to them, it did. The galaxy had awakened something that had been sleeping among the stars, something that viewed mercy as a luxury they could no longer afford. And now that sleeping giant was teaching the universe why some warnings should never be ignored. 6 months after the first attack on Earth, the once mighty Zilani hegemony transmitted their final message to the galaxy. The broadcast originated from their capital world, where the few surviving leaders huddled in underground bunkers while human ships patrolled their skies. To the forces of humanity came the broken voice of what remained of the hegemony high command. We formally surrender all territorial claims. We renounce all military actions against human space and colonies. We submit completely to human authority and beg for mercy. Admiral Sarah Chen received the transmission aboard her flagship, Retribution, orbiting the hegemony homeworld. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, professional even in this moment of total victory. "Admiral," our communications officer said, "the surrender is being broadcast on all galactic frequencies. Every species in known space is hearing this." Sarah nodded and activated her own transmitter. Her words would be remembered by every civilization for centuries to come. To the Zilani hegemony and all who supported their war against humanity, your surrender is accepted. Your military forces will be disbanded. Your weapons will be destroyed. Your ability to wage war against civilian populations ends today. She paused, looking out at the planet below where once proud alien warriors now lived in fear of human judgment. But surrender is not enough. You killed 50 million human civilians without provocation. You forced us to reveal what we truly are when threatened. The galaxy will remember both your actions and our response. The broadcast reached every corner of known space, carrying with it footage that would become the stuff of nightmares for generations of alien children. Human ships moving through space like predators. Cities vaporized by weapons that shouldn't exist. Fleets disappearing into clouds of consuming nanites. On the Thorian homeworld, Emperor Krath watched the surrender with growing dread. His species had contributed 2 battle groups to the war against humanity. Both had been completely destroyed, their wreckage now serving as monuments to human military capability. "Your Majesty," his aide whispered urgently, "human ships are approaching our outer system." Krath closed his 4 eyes in resignation. "Signal our complete surrender. Offer no resistance. Perhaps they will show mercy to those who submit quickly." The human fleet that entered Thorian space was led by General Patricia Hayes aboard the battleship Earth's Fury. Unlike the vengeful armada the aliens expected, the human ships took positions around the system's major worlds without firing a shot. "This is General Hayes to the Thorian government. Your military forces attacked human colonies and civilians. Your surrender is accepted, but your military capabilities will be permanently eliminated." What followed was perhaps more terrifying than any battle. Human ships methodically cataloged every Thorian weapon, every military installation, every piece of technology that could be used for warfare. Then they destroyed it all with surgical precision, leaving the aliens completely defenseless, but otherwise unharmed. "Your civilians will not be harmed," General Hayes announced. "Your government will continue to function under human oversight, but you will never again possess the ability to make war against innocent people." Similar scenes played out across the galaxy, as human forces arrived at every world that had supported the war against Earth. The message was always the same: surrender immediately and live under human protection, or face the consequences of continued resistance. Sarah Kim stood in the laboratory that had once produced weapons of mass destruction, watching as her creations were systematically deactivated. The nanite swarms, the biological weapons, the antimatter bombs, all of it was being carefully dismantled now that the war was over. "Any regrets?" asked her assistant, observing the destruction of research that had taken years to complete. "Only that we had to build them at all," Sarah replied. "But when someone threatens to exterminate your species, you use every weapon available." The galaxy was learning that humanity's approach to warfare was fundamentally different from every other species they had encountered. Humans didn't fight for territory or resources or glory. They fought for survival, and that made them infinitely more dangerous than traditional conquerors. Captain Elena Rodriguez commanded one of the human patrol ships now monitoring the former Crystalline Collective territory. Her mission was to ensure that no military buildup occurred while helping the aliens rebuild their civilian infrastructure. "It's strange," she told her crew during a briefing. "6 months ago, we were preparing to wipe them out completely. Now we're protecting them from pirates and raiders." Her tactical officer nodded. "The Admiral's new doctrine. We destroy their ability to make war, then we become their protectors. It ensures they never threaten us again, but it also means they're dependent on us for security." Elena looked out at the alien cities below, their lights twinkling peacefully in the darkness. Maybe that's what the galaxy needs. Someone willing to keep the peace, even if the method is harsh. On Earth, reconstruction continued around the memorial sites where great cities had once stood. The ruins of New York, Tokyo, and London had been preserved exactly as the alien attack had left them, serving as reminders of why humanity had been forced to reveal its true nature. Admiral Chen walked through the memorial to the 50 million civilians who had died in the first attack. Each name was carved in black stone, a permanent record of the price humanity had paid for the galaxy's education. "The memorial is beautiful," said Ambassador Torres, who had been appointed as humanity's first galactic diplomatic representative. "But do you think we'll ever be able to move past what we had to do?" Sarah touched one of the names on the wall, a little girl from Sao Paulo who had been playing in a park when the alien struck. "We don't get to move past it. That's the burden of being the strong ones. We have to remember so that it never happens again." The new galactic order was unlike anything in recorded history. Humanity had become the dominant military power, but they used that dominance to enforce peace rather than expand their territory. Human fleets patrolled trade routes, protecting merchant vessels from pirates. Human mediators settled disputes between alien species before they could escalate to war. But the aliens never forgot what lay beneath humanity's peaceful exterior. On the planet New Kepler, alien children learned new stories that their parents told them at bedtime. Tales of the quiet ones from the blue world who seemed harmless until someone threatened their families. The stories always ended the same way. Be kind to the humans, little ones, for they remember everything and forgive nothing when it comes to protecting those they love. The lesson had been learned, but at a terrible cost. The galaxy was safer now, protected by a species that had proven it would sacrifice everything to defend the innocent. But that safety came with the knowledge that somewhere in the darkness of space, human ships waited and watched, ensuring that no one would ever again make the mistake of attacking Earth's children. In her final address to the galaxy, Admiral Chen stood before representatives of every known species, human and alien alike. Behind her, Earth turned slowly, its scars still visible, but its people unbowed. "We never wanted this role," she said, her voice carrying to every world in human space. "We never wanted to be the ones who decided who lived and who died, who could have weapons and who could not. But you forced that choice upon us when you murdered our families." She looked directly at the alien ambassadors, her eyes hard as steel. "We told you once, strike again and be destroyed. You didn't listen. Now the galaxy knows what happens when someone threatens humanity. We will not repeat that lesson." The broadcast ended with footage of human children playing in parks, rebuilt on the ruins of destroyed cities. Their laughter a promise and a warning to the universe. Earth's children would grow up in peace, protected by parents who had proven they would burn the galaxy down before allowing harm to come to their young. And in the depths of space, human patrol ships continued their eternal vigilance, ensuring that the warning given so long ago would never need to be repeated. The galaxy had heard Earth's warning. They would not forget it again.